way he moves the camera in Snatch is just fantastic. I love it.
I've been waiting to say
You've been smiling the whole time every time I say Snatch. Just make your vagina joke. Hey guys, welcome to episode 55 of the Nerds You're Looking For podcast, a weekly nerd culture podcast that discusses the culture through various segments. My name is Patrick Kuhn, alongside my co-host, as always, that Tyler Hunt. How's it going, man?
It's going good. How are you?
I'm good. We actually got to hang out, not doing the podcast, it was very rare for us. I mean, obviously we hang out weekly now, but it's always to record the podcast, which is fun. I mean, don't get me wrong, we really enjoy it, but it was kind of nice just hanging out, not talking into microphones.
Well, I'm glad you thought so, because I thought it was awful.
You just carry a microphone around with you at all times now?
Yeah.
You can't have conversations unless it's recorded?
Yeah, everything that comes out of my mouth, I'm like, well, how is this going to impact the podcast?
Well, I kind of like that where your mind's at. You're always thinking about the podcast, but I mean, I enjoyed it. We played Dice Masters again, which I want to say that I'm getting better, but you kind of completely destroyed me, which I suppose is I deserved because I'm always talking shit about DC and you destroyed me with an awesome Justice League team. So, I mean, I guess I deserved that, but, yeah, it was a bloodbath.
We played 3 games and you won one of them and I won 2. So I think the last time we played, did we each win 1 or you won 2 and I won 1? So it's pretty even.
Yeah. I think the last time we played, your buddy Mike came over and he's a little intense and that was literally the first time I'd ever played the game. And I think I beat him twice.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was using a team that I basically just stole from you. So it's not that impressive. And then the team that when we were playing this previous time, the team that I built, by myself did not go well. So, I mean, I was just trying out a bunch of different stuff and my cards are not that great. So.
See, that's my problem with Dice Masters is I just want to play with characters I like.
Yeah.
And you can't do that because then there's no strategy and you get demolished. And so that's the thing about Dice Masters that kind of sucks is it doesn't really matter what characters you're using. It just is about abilities and stuff. And you can end up with a team of characters you don't even know.
Yeah.
Whereas I just want to play with like Batman and.
Which you did.
Yeah, I did. But I'll be honest, that strategy that I use with the Justice League typically doesn't work. It just, I lucked out.
Oh, you lucked out that you were playing me.
No, I mean, honestly, like one of the games I won, I think you probably would have won if you would have rolled Angel.
Yeah, that was pissing me off. It seemed like the game that I won, I was having a hard time rolling Falcon's character die.
Yeah.
And so I think I would have won that game a lot earlier if I had gotten better rolls. And then the second game, like you said, I was having a hard time rolling Angel. So basically my strategy kind of depends on getting a lot of sidekicks and getting those 2 characters out.
Yeah.
And neither one of those things were really working out for me. But
for sure.
But it was fun hanging out, and then afterwards we talked about movies that we aren't going to talk about on the podcast, so that was kind of fun.
Yeah, we actually had a discussion about nerdy things that we did not record, which is weird for us now.
Yeah, for sure. Anyways, if this is your first episode, thanks for checking us out. We like to start each episode by checking in, having a nerdy conversation that we do record. We call it What We're Into. So, Tyler, what are you into this week?
I watched the Chris Farley documentary last night.
All right, cool.
I Am Chris Farley. And it wasn't necessarily what I expected. I mean, it wasn't bad or anything, but I wouldn't have necessarily called it a documentary. It was almost like a behind the music.
Okay.
Of course, not music related, but it was more of a career retrospective as opposed to here's what happened behind the scenes with Chris Farley. I mean, his drug use is kind of glossed over. It's talked about a lot towards the end, obviously, when he passes away, but it really didn't. No one talked about how that really impacted his performance and his life up until that point. It wasn't even hardly brought up until the end of the documentary. And obviously his drug use was probably present throughout most of his career, especially once he got onto Saturday Night Live. So it was kind of weird that they really glossed over that. That's kind of what I wanted to know more about, to be honest, was Chris Farley as a person and what was going on in his personal life. And I don't know, maybe that makes me a shitty person because I love Chris Farley so much and I love his work, but I don't need to hear 30 Saturday Night Live cast members talk about why the motivational speaker skit works. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, his film career isn't talked about too much. I mean, he didn't have a lot of movies. They talked quite a bit about Tommy Boy, which I enjoyed because that is my favorite Chris Farley movie. I love that movie to death. But I mean, in the end, it was kind of cool that all of his buddies and all of these bigger comedians got together to help film this documentary and just gushed over the guy and talked about what a great person he was. And it does sound like he was a really great person. And of course, we lost him too soon, but it just didn't go the route that I was expecting it to go.
Yeah. It sounds like, did you ever watch those best of the SNL?
Yeah.
It sounds like that would be something that would be really great on his, like a special feature on that particular DVD.
Yeah. I mean, they show a ton. They don't show any full skits, I guess, but they really dissect his big ones. And, and these other SNL cast members that were there at the time talk about why it worked and how it came about and that kind of stuff. So it was interesting in that standpoint, but not too much of him as a person. I mean, you get a lot of his earlier days. His brothers are on there and talking about him, and you kind of get his background, but you don't really get a sense for the drug use and things like that.
Weren't both of his brothers, aren't they still in the business?
I know the documentary actually starts off with his brother Kevin doing stand-up in Madison, Wisconsin, which is where they're from. And then his other brother looked really familiar.
Yeah, I know one of his brothers, and I apologize because I don't remember. I want to say it's Peter. Is it Peter?
Maybe.
I know he's in movies. I mean, he's not famous by any stretch, but I mean, he's in the business.
Yeah, that's probably who it is because he talked, or I'm sorry, he looked really familiar.
Yeah, for sure.
He had a pretty big family, so. All right, so yeah, I mean, I'd watch it, especially if you like Chris Farley, but I didn't get from it what I was expecting to.
Okay, cool.
Sense. All right, man, what are you into?
I'm into a movie as well. I went and saw it Friday night, the night after we watched Fantastic Four and recorded. I just had to get that bad taste out of my mouth, and I'm really glad I did. It's a movie called The Gift. It was written and directed by, well, he was in the movie as well, Joel Edgerton. I think that's how you pronounce his name. And he's not necessarily a guy that I necessarily seek out his work. He pops up here and there, but he's a face I recognize, but is not necessarily somebody I seek out. I did know that Jason Bateman was in it, which he is one of those guys that I kind of seek out his work. I really appreciate him as a comedian and just as an actor in general.
I mean, he was hilarious in this
movie. Yeah, he was pretty funny in this movie. And so it was actually kind of nice to go into a movie because I hadn't heard anything about this movie. It was completely off my radar. Like I said, I just went to see it to see another movie and kind of get that bad taste of Fantastic Four out of my mouth. It was getting good reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. I tried to stay away from the synopsis because I really just didn't want to know anything about this movie. I just wanted to go in completely fresh. And I'm glad I did because there's a lot of twists and turns in this movie that maybe if I had dove a little deeper than I did, I don't think it would have necessarily been spoiled for me, but I kind of liked knowing almost nothing about this movie. If you've ever heard about this movie, which doesn't surprise me because it didn't get much buzz, it is about a married couple that moved back to Jason Bateman's the husband in this movie. They moved back to his hometown, and he reunites with one. I don't want to say a high school friend because you find out later that they weren't really friends, but just a guy he knew in high school. And through their interactions, you find out this secret that Jason Bateman's been hiding from his wife, played by, I think it's Rebecca Hall.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I have it written down. It is Rebecca Hall. I don't know why I didn't look at my notes. Anyways, I don't want to spoil too much because, like I said, this movie does have a lot of twists and turns. But it reminded me a lot of how people felt after they saw Gone Girl. I know you really liked Gone Girl, Tyler. I wasn't that impressed. I felt like this was kind of my Gone Girl. I felt the same way a lot of people felt after they left that movie. Yeah. Because I felt like it was built a lot better. Not that Gone Girl's a bad movie by any stretch. It's beautifully done. The acting is great. I just didn't buy some of the twists in there like I bought the twists in The Gift. I thought that the character development was a little bit better. I felt like the twists made a little bit more sense as far as the characters were concerned. And I just really liked how they kind of played on your preconceived notions about characters. Like they present these characters in a way that you're like, okay, yeah, I've seen movies before, so I know this guy's going to react this way and he's the bad guy. But then there's a turn and then you feel sympathetic towards a particular character and then you turn on that character and then you feel sorry for him again, but not really because he's kind of an asshole. And it kind of goes back and forth, and I really appreciate the twists and turns in the movie. And I wouldn't necessarily say that it's a horror movie. It's more of a thriller that kind of has a few horror aspects to it, which I appreciated. It does have a very creepy feel. I was never really scared, but I mean, I've said in past episodes, I don't really get scared very easily, but I was creeped out. There was some moments in the movie that I thought worked really well and that I was creeped out. And the ending I thought was great because it's I wouldn't say that it's an Inception type of ending. You're not quite sure, but you're not supposed to know exactly. That was the whole point of the ending, is that you don't know exactly what happened. And I really appreciate it. I liked it a lot. It's one of my top, I would say, 5 films of this year so far. I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to seeing it again.
Yeah, I actually went and saw this movie the other day based on what you told me, and luckily you were very broad in your description of it so that I could go in fresh as well, because I hadn't even seen a trailer for this movie. I solely went because you said it was good, and it was really awesome. I would say it's probably in my top 5 for the year so far as well. It really caught me off guard with how much I enjoyed it. And it was funny that you compared it to Gone Girl, because as the movie was wrapping up in the final climax, like my hands were behind my head like they were during Gone Girl, just like, what the fuck is happening? Yeah. So it was really cool. And like you said, like the villain of the movie goes back and forth between various characters almost every scene. Like you're flipping on whose side you're on with things. And the end, I think, is even left a little open, like who's the real villain of this movie.
Okay, without giving too much away, and I don't mean to interrupt you, and I don't think this is a huge spoiler because we won't say a whole lot about it, but do you think he did it? That's all I want to know.
No, I don't.
No, I don't either.
I don't think he did it. Okay, that's all we can say without. Yep, I don't think he did.
Okay.
Man, that's it's good stuff. I think Gone Girl is the better movie. Unlike
really?
You. I think it's the better made and better acted movie. But I don't want to take anything away from this movie. This movie is awesome in and of itself. And like I said, I love it. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's on my top 10 at the end of the year.
Yeah, I'm not dissing Gone Girl. I enjoyed it. But I just felt like the twists in this particular movie made more sense with the characters that I was presented with.
This movie is much more subtle.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
The stuff that happens in Gone Girl is crazy and out there. And that could work for or against it. This movie, the subtlety is really awesome. Like, it being subtle doesn't mean it's bad. Like, the subtlety works really well.
Sure.
And the build up with the characters and the unraveling of the history is just amazing.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I can't suggest it enough. If you liked Gone Girl, definitely check this out because I thought it was fantastic. Like I said, I think it's better than Gone Girl. Not that that movie was bad or anything.
Yeah, Joel Edgerton did an amazing job.
Oh yeah, it's his first. I don't know if it's his first writing job, but I know it's his first directing job.
Yeah,
and he was fantastic, and he was really great in the movie itself. I mean, he was super creepy.
It's probably like his best role to date. Like I looked through his filmography, and he's not done many things that stand out too much. Like the last thing I saw him in was Exodus: Gods and Kings, and that movie was garbage.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool that he found a studio and found a production company, and it might even be his production company, I don't know, that allowed him to make this movie he wanted to make, and it's so good.
And how fucking awesome was Jason Bateman in this movie?
Oh, he was great.
Mean, I don't want to give too much away, but I mean, there are certain parts of this movie where you're not supposed to like his character, and you don't. He fucking nails it.
Yeah.
I mean, we joked around that he's more known for his comedic performances, but he just nails the drama in this movie.
And Rebecca Hall was great too. Honestly, like the entire cast was great.
Yeah, for sure.
And earlier, whenever I said Jason Bateman was hilarious in this movie, hopefully you got it by now. I was being sarcastic. He is not funny in this movie. This movie is not a funny movie.
He does have, there's a particular scene, and it ends up coming back to haunt him later, but I thought that particular scene was pretty funny.
I don't know which one you're talking about, but we'll talk off recording.
Yeah.
All right, you ready to move on?
Yeah, our next segment.
Wait, star rating. What would you get?
Star rating?
Yeah.
Kind of putting me on the spot. I want to say 4.5, but I will say 4, just because I think I might not be blown away as much the second time around.
Yeah, I'm torn between a 4 and a 4.5 as well. I'll stick to a 4 for now, and then have a better thing.
If I see it again and I like it just as much, if it's one of those movies that I pick up on things that I didn't pick up on the second or third time I watch it, and I appreciate it even more, those types of movies are kind of few and far between. I usually watch a movie like this and have that knee-jerk reaction. This is the greatest movie of all time. And then I watch it again. I'm just like, it's all right.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see it again.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
All right. So our next segment is just plainly called Comics. Tyler and I read a ton of comics, and we just like to spotlight one or two each week. So Tyler, what are you reading this week?
I have a feeling you're going to laugh at me for this one.
I laugh at most of the things that you say.
I know, because it's usually DC and you're not a fan. Anytime, it's funny, we play Dice Masters and I use that Justice League lineup and I go, all right, I'm going to buy an Aquaman. I go, yeah, of course you are. You always have some smart ass comment. But, I started reading this, I guess, 2 months ago, Batgirl.
Okay. Yeah, you had mentioned it.
Did I?
A few episodes ago, yeah.
Have I already brought this up on the podcast?
Hopefully we're not going to have the exact same conversation.
No, I mean, it's a few issues later. I honestly completely forgot that I'd already brought this up. But what really drew me to starting to read this comic in particular was because James Gordon's now Batman. And obviously there's a dynamic there between him and Barbara Gordon being Batgirl. And it's interesting because Barbara knows that Jim Gordon's Batman, but he doesn't know that Barbara is Batgirl. So there's a little bit of interplay there. But this comic's not really been what I expected. The tone of the book is really off when you think of the Batman universe. It's definitely more campy. It reminds me maybe of like Batman 66 a little bit, as opposed to the regular Batman arc, or what's the word I'm looking for? The Batman story going on right now.
The canon?
Yeah, sure, the canon. It's not bad, but it's not great. It's kind of weird. It's like a cross between a detective book and also like the life of a teenage or a young adult woman. So I don't know, probably not for me. Yeah, specifically. It's interesting though, because of, like I said, the relationship between Batman and Batgirl now, and I'll probably keep up with it for a little bit longer, just to see where it goes. It's not a bad book. It's just not great.
Okay, cool. Like you said, I'm not a big DC fan. Obviously, I love Batman. That's about all I read, I think, from DC, really.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything else. I stopped reading Swamp Thing after Zack Snyder stopped writing it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. There's a book that I just picked up, all 6 issues, and I really want to read it, and I haven't read it yet. And it's a DC book, but it has nothing to do with, like, superheroes or anything. It's called Wolf Moon.
Okay.
And that just popped into my head as something that you might enjoy.
Okay, cool.
Werewolf book.
I was having a hard time actually listening to you because I called him Zack Snyder.
Did you?
Yeah, I'm almost positive I said Zack. It's Scott Snyder.
Yeah,
I do
Scott
that shit
Snyder.
all the time.
I didn't even pick that up.
Yeah, I'm almost positive that I called him Zack Snyder. I apologize for that. It's Scott Snyder.
All right, man. What comic are you reading this week?
This is a comic I've talked about before, and I think I actually briefly mentioned it last episode. The Fade Out. It is a comic that I really enjoy. It's kind of a slow burn, but I really enjoy it. It's up to issue 8. If you haven't started reading it, you should. It's really great. It's about this particular character, Charlie, who is a screenwriter for a movie studio. I'm guessing, I don't know if they actually tell you when it is, but one of the characters is blacklisted. So it had to have been like late 40s, early 50s, somewhere in that area. And he's trying to shoot this movie, and the film star, the female lead, supposedly commits suicide. Charlie thinks that there's some foul play involved. And basically it's just this big conspiracy book, and I really enjoy it. It's really well written. Like I said, it's kind of a slow burn. There's a lot of characters. It's really dense, but I've actually read that the writer made it purposely dense because he wants people to enjoy it when they reread it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that I guess he put in there that you're probably not supposed to catch the first or second time you read it. So I appreciate that. The particular issue, the newest issue, number 8, was supposed to be, I think they're like their end of Act 2 or whatever. And it wasn't the conclusion I was hoping for, but I still enjoy the book. Like the lead up to it, even though the conclusion wasn't as satisfying as I was hoping it would be, it's still an interesting book. There's a lot of characters in this book that I enjoy. It reminds me a lot of Boardwalk Empire and those types of shows where there's just a lot of threads in it. It was actually kind of funny because I was reading it. I think it was issue number 7, and Charlie gets this note from Tina. And I'm just like, who the fuck is Tina? Like, there's so many characters. And I was like, did I miss something important? And I started reading, like, the next night I read issue 8. And I was so happy because Charlie is a drunk in this book. And the very next issue, he's like, who the fuck is Tina? He didn't say that exactly, those exact words, but I was just like, thank you. I'm not the only one that doesn't know who this chick is. So, I mean, I appreciate that. And I mean, it's really dense and it's certainly a slow burn, but I appreciate it, even though issue 8 wasn't as good as I was hoping it would be.
Cool. I'll have to check that out because it sounds really interesting. I'm just so backlogged with the comics I'm reading. It's hard to pick up new things.
And I wanted to point out, we talk a lot about Image Comics on the podcast, but we try to hit other things, obviously. I just discovered, I was browsing the podcast subreddit, and I found a new podcast after Image. I've listened to the first couple episodes. I think he just released episode 3. I haven't gotten a chance to listen to it yet, where he just talks about Image Comics, and it's really great. So you check that out on iTunes. Episodes are like less than 20 minutes, so I mean, they don't take much of a commitment to listen to, and it's good stuff so far. Obviously, it's new, so there's going to be some growing pains. But I really think that he's off to a good start, and I wish I knew his name. But check him out on iTunes. It's really good so far.
Cool.
All right. So on to our next segment. It's just called Nerd News. Tyler compiles the latest nerd news since the last time we talked. So Tyler, what do you got for me this week?
Let's go ahead and start off and just talk a little bit more about Fantastic Four.
Please.
I mean, so we hammered this movie last week in our review, but since that review, things have kind of come out about the production process of this movie. And I thought that it'd be kind of interesting to just go over it just a little bit. So as soon as the movie came out and was getting terrible reviews, Josh Trank tweeted, I'll read the tweet. A year ago, I had a fantastic version of this and it would have received great reviews. You'll probably never see it. That's really though. And I think he meant tough there, but he misspelled it. And after that, stuff started kind of leaking out about the production of this movie, and it keeps going back and forth on whether it was Josh Trank's fault or it was the studio's fault. So on the studio side of things, apparently 20th Century Fox really kind of took the reins with the movie, slashed the budget, slashed pieces of the movie out. But on the Josh Trank side of things, apparently he was just a dick on set.
Yeah.
Like I read like he had curtains around the camera or around his editing station so people couldn't see what he was doing. And he was a dick to the cast and was like giving them directions on breathing and blinking. Like down, like, so really just, controlling as a director.
Sure.
It came out yesterday that him and Miles Teller almost came to blows on set. Like, crazy shit went on with this movie, and I would love to see just a documentary about the shitstorm that this movie was. But I mean, that'd never happen probably. I'm really curious because, the trailers leading up to this movie had stuff that wasn't in the final product. The final product was a mess and didn't make sense. Like, I just really want to know what decisions were made behind the scenes to lead into the shitstorm that was this movie.
Honestly, though, can't he say whatever he wants? Like, oh, I had this awesome version of this movie.
Yeah.
We're never going to see that version of the movie, especially if the studio's all pissed at him, which it sounds like they are. They're never going to release a director's cut.
Apparently, a few days before the movie, he was saying something else. Like, he was happy with it because it was reported that he sent out an email to various cast and crew members saying that this movie was better than 99% of the comic book movies ever made. And one of the cast members, who they don't identify, responded, "I don't think so." and that was it. So, then once the bad reviews started coming in, he changed his tune a little bit.
Yeah.
And I don't doubt that the studio had their hand in it and really
for sure.
interrupted his vision. But I'd be curious what could be added into that movie to make it significantly better, because I don't think there is anything.
No. I mean, we touched on it a little bit in our review. I think you mentioned that he tried to make a bit of a horror movie. He wanted a horror,
like a
touch to
body
it.
Horror.
Yeah, and I think there was a particular scene with Michael B. Jordan that I thought really somewhat accomplished that, and it was one of my favorite scenes in the movie, just because that whole movie was pretty much garbage. That I think if they stuck with that, I think it would have been an interesting movie. And maybe there's a scene later, a little bit later in the movie, where it's just like, okay, they know how to use their powers and they've been using it for a while, and it's just kind of a montage of you watching the Thing blow up tanks or whatever.
Yeah.
And maybe that was kind of filler. They cut out a lot of the other stuff that he wanted to put in it, and maybe that was just filler reshoots or whatever. I don't know. But it seemed like if he could have made that movie, maybe that would have been a little bit more interesting. But they were never going to make that movie.
I mean, I know they said they did a ton of reshoots for the end because the third act was really weak and they couldn't get Miles Teller, so they had to do a lot with like body doubles and then green screen stuff with him in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why the third act of the movie is such a shit show.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. It just sounds like so much craziness happened here. I'm really curious.
Didn't he tweet out later that he was never going to make another comic book movie again?
I don't know. Maybe. I don't remember that, but I wouldn't be surprised.
And I read that somewhere. I don't follow him, so I didn't read it on his feed. But I just thought that was funny because he made it sound like it was his choice.
Yeah.
No one's ever going to ask you to do it after this shit show.
I mean, he got pretty much, it's known that he got fired from the Star Wars anthology movie he was going to do.
Yeah.
Because of his attitude and work on this movie. So I don't know. It's really interesting because like half people are blaming Fox and half the people are blaming him, and it's probably a combination of the two.
Do you think he'll ever make another movie again?
Yeah. I mean, I do. I think it's going to be indie stuff and stuff that
Chronicle 2
stuff that he has a lot of creative direction, I guess.
Sure.
Over, because apparently he can't share that with the studio. I don't know. I'll be interested to see where his career goes after this.
For sure. I wasn't a huge fan of Chronicle though, so
I mean, it was whatever. And I told you this the other day. He's been doing a series of interviews on Fat Man on Batman with Kevin Smith.
Yep.
And it's supposed to be 4 episodes, and they've put 3 out all before Fantastic Four came out. And all of them are just like, Kevin Smith sucking his dick and saying how great this movie looks. And Josh Trank is like so happy with this movie, and he's like loves the cast and loves the people at 20th Century Fox. And now all this stuff came out. So if they do another episode of this interview, I'm really curious to see where it goes. I wouldn't be surprised if it never happens, but it's a shit show for sure.
All right. So what else you got for me? So
James Wan is going to produce a new Mortal Kombat movie.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm very excited about it. I guess I know he's not he's either not writing it or he's not directing it anymore. The guy that did Mortal Kombat Legacy is still apparently involved as a producer or something. He was set to write it and direct it. And that was kind of a bummer when he decided he wasn't going to do it anymore. But I think he still has some involvement. And as long as they're going more towards Mortal Kombat Legacy, I'm super excited because that show was awesome.
Yeah, it was. And I think that it's such a strong and rich universe that you could make an awesome movie with these characters.
And I've talked about it before, the episode when I talked about Mortal Kombat Legacy. The universe is inherently silly.
Yeah.
So it's going to be kind of a hard, it's going to be a hard job to make it grounded, kind of like Christopher Nolan did with Batman universe. But Batman's not quite as ridiculous as Mortal Kombat, obviously. But if they can go more of the grounded route, I think that it could be a successful franchise. The two Mortal Kombat movies just go all out crazy, and it's just, they didn't do well, and it's just ridiculous.
I love that first one in grade school, though.
Yeah, the first one is awesome. And I used to say the second one was my favorite because I was a little kid when it came out. The second one is so fucking bad.
I mean, I haven't watched the second one since middle school.
It's, oh my God, it's so bad. Like, I'm curious how that movie ever got made. Like, who saw this movie and was like, yep, that's it. We nailed it. Because it's really bad. But I'm looking forward to it. I love the franchise. I love those games. And like I said, I think if you go more of the Mortal Kombat Legacy route, it would be successful.
Yeah, for sure. I would look forward to it very much. So this next story, I'm realizing, would have been a good story to do after we talked about Fantastic Four.
Okay.
But I got my stories mixed up. So back to Fantastic Four really quick. They had scheduled a Fantastic Four 2 movie for 2017 because they had a lot of faith in this movie at one time, I guess. Well, the rumor is that movie is now going to be replaced with a Deadpool 2, you know, as long as Deadpool performs in February when it comes out. So, I mean, that's good news, right?
June 9th, 2017, my birthday. Will I be 30? I will be 30 years old.
Oh, dude.
We're going to go see Deadpool on my 30th birthday. But wouldn't they have to start shooting this movie before the other movie even comes out?
That's what makes me think that maybe it was a bit premature, like this story that came out. Because you're right. They would have to start probably in January at the latest. Maybe they could start doing it right after it comes out in February, but they need production time.
Yeah, they would need to sign off on this movie before the other movie even came out to get it done. Yeah,
for sure. And I mean, judging by what everybody's seen and the buzz around it, I'm sure it will perform well. But still, I mean, it's kind of risky to hand over a bunch of money for something that hasn't even come out, a sequel to something that hasn't even come out yet.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that Deadpool will do Fantastic Four money. And hopefully it just doesn't have a Fantastic Four budget.
Yeah. Which I don't think it does. I think they did it for really cheap for a superhero movie.
Yeah. Which is good because it's a unique character and obviously it's rated R.
Yeah.
So that's going to scare off a little bit of people.
Yeah, you can't make that movie for $120 million and expect it to blow that out of the water.
Yeah.
You know?
There's very few rated R movies that do that well to justify that type of budget. And I mean, 120 million is just what it takes to make the movie, and then they have to market it and all this other bullshit.
Oh, for sure.
So I think if it does Fantastic Four money, I think you have to be happy.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm looking at this next story and I was going back and forth on even bringing it up, but I am anyway. So
okay, cool.
They're making another Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters movie.
Okay.
With Jeremy Renner and Gemma Arterton. I don't know how to pronounce
I don't know why you're looking at me. I have no idea.
But I guess that first one did like great overseas. It was pretty average here in the US. I think it was like a January movie, so you know how those movies typically are.
Yeah.
But it had made a bunch of money overseas, so they're making another one. Did you see the first one?
I did not.
It is not great.
Oh, you actually watched it?
Yeah, man, I fucking own it.
Oh, what?
I blind bought it because I thought the concept was kind of cool. I liked the Grimm fairy tales.
Okay.
And I thought it was kind of a cool concept that Hansel and Gretel grew up and they hunt witches and yada, yada, yada. I mean,
did you ever see Brothers Grimm?
Yeah, I did in theaters when it came out.
One of the worst movies you've ever seen,
yeah, right? Yeah. I wasn't a movie buff when I saw it. I was just kind of getting into being a movie buff.
So was I.
And even still, I knew that I had just watched a bunch of garbage.
Yeah.
Like, it was super boring. Oh, that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're making another one, and I thought that was kind of funny and kind of, you should, if it's ever on Netflix, you should watch it.
I think it was for a while, and I had no interest in seeing it. But maybe I'll check it out.
I want to say Brittany, my wife, liked it a little bit. Again, she has terrible taste, and she does not listen to this, so she'll never hear me say that. But I
think I might tell her to listen to this episode.
That's fine. You know, I tell her to her face that she likes terrible things. I mean, she sits around and watches The Real Housewives. She doesn't have a great handle on things.
Does she watch The Bachelorette?
She does not watch The Bachelorette.
Okay.
Does your wife watch The Bachelorette?
Yeah, she does.
All right, cool. All right, we'll move on. So Constantine is going to be on Arrow.
Yes, I'm excited for it because I really appreciated that show, and I was bummed that it didn't do.
Yeah,
it didn't do well enough to get a second season. But I don't want to watch Arrow, so
NBC's trash is the CW's treasure.
Yeah, apparently. I tried to watch Arrow like forever ago, and I think I even brought it up on the podcast. I was really enjoying it. I was only like 5 or 6 episodes in. Then after like episode 8, I was just like, this sucks. This is just like a little soap opera.
Yeah.
With superhero kind of sprinkled in there. And so I gave up on it, especially because it was like 20 some hour long episodes in first season.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, this is way too much of a commitment for a show that I barely like and a character that I really could care less about.
I binge watched like that first 8 episodes with a couple buddies, and it was all right, but then I never had the itch to continue watching it. And then stories like this that come out every once in a while, like, oh, look at what they're doing on Arrow, and people seem to love it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man, I wish I would have stuck with it.
I feel the same way.
But you know, there's 40 something episodes, hour-long episodes ahead of me, and I don't feel like watching all of them.
There's so many like characters in this universe now, and I'm like, oh man, I would really love this if I could just get through the first season. But I have a problem with that because I don't feel like I should have to watch shitty TV to get to the good shit. It should just be good the whole time.
Yeah, cut out the 10 episodes that are shitty, and you could have a really good 13 episode season.
For sure.
Which is what I always say. Like, I hate that network television has these 22 episode seasons, like Gotham. Like, there's so much shit they could have cut out of that first season to make it a little bit better. Well, it was supposed
to only be 16 episodes or something like that, and then they bumped it to 22, and you can tell there's some filler most of the episodes are filler episodes.
Exactly. Any of like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Like I'm sure that I've heard great things about that show and how it got a lot better, but that first season was hard to watch, and that's why I stopped watching that show. 22 episodes is just too much, man.
Yeah. I'm binge watching the X-Files still, and they're like 24, 25, and they're all an hour long. Well, I mean, they're 45 minutes long because I'm watching it on Netflix, but they were an hour long when they aired, and I'm starting to really enjoy that show. But there's still a lot of episodes. I'm just like, this is just Monster of the Week. I don't need to see that. Like, you can just go. I really appreciate the shows that build the mythology, but then there's some other shows that I'm just like, you just threw this in because you needed a show this week.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly. And I hate that.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Zach Galifianakis is going to voice the Joker in the Lego Batman movie.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I think that's funny. I have high hopes for this movie because Batman was one of the best parts of the Lego movie, and to kind of have a whole movie set in this weird universe is kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I think it's a good choice. I was initially kind of bummed that they didn't go the Mark Hamill route, but I think he's a more of the darker type of Joker, and I think this is a good choice for, obviously, they're not going to go the dark route with Lego Batman. So I think it's a good choice.
I mean, you have Will Arnett as Batman and Michael Cera as Robin.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
You need somebody to kind of play off them, which is great.
Yeah.
And then this last one just announced yesterday. I didn't read too much about it, but I thought it was funny enough to bring up, and I have a feeling you're going to hate it. So
sure.
There's a new show that's going to be on NBC, and it's a workplace comedy about an insurance company. And it just so happens that this insurance company is in the DC universe.
What?
Okay. So it's a workplace comedy. These people
heard the words that you said.
These people work in an insurance company that's part of the DC universe.
Okay.
So I'm guessing it's going to be stuff like, oh no, Superman knocked over a building or some shit like that. So yeah, I don't know. What are you thinking?
I mean, I didn't hear anything about this, so I don't know who's attached to it or anything.
I mean, honestly, I do not know either.
In good hands, I think that's a kind of a clever concept. I think it would get tired really quickly.
Oh, for sure.
But I mean, it sounds like a fun concept.
So have you seen the previews for the new Muppet Show?
I have not.
Because it seems very similar to that, except obviously one's the Muppets and one's the DC universe.
Yeah.
It's like they're trying to take the success of Parks and Rec and The Office and those types of workplace comedies, and they're stretching a little bit, because that's what the Muppet Show on ABC is going to be like, is very documentary, a very documentary feel. Sure. With the Muppets kind of behind the scenes. And it seems like that's probably the way they're going to go with this.
It sounds weird, and it seems like something that would be great for like a Funny or Die video or something like that, but not a show that you're going to see an episode each week and have multiple seasons or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. We'll see if it even gets past the pilot stage. All right, man. That's what I have for nerd news this week.
All right, cool, man. The next segment that we are going to talk about is just kind of a main topic. It changes episode to episode. Recently, we've been doing a lot of movie reviews. It's summer movie season. And so we're going to continue that trend, and we're going to talk about a new movie that just got released this week called Man From U.N.C.L.E. Now, Tyler, do you call it Man From U.N.C.L.E. or do you call it Man From U.N.C.L.E? I had to think of how to spell uncle for like a split second there.
I say uncle.
Okay, I think that's the easiest way to do it. But, I mean, it kind of bothers me that it's an acronym, but yet they call it uncle. That, I don't know.
The reason, I mean, Hugh Grant refers to him as uncle in it, and I don't know. I wasn't going to go up to the box office and be like, I'll take one for the Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Did you have to think about how to spell uncle?
A little.
Anyways, this was a movie that I brought up in our top 5 movie or summer movie preview, just because I actually picked movies that were released during the summer. So I had very few to choose from. I was looking forward to it because it's a Guy Richie movie. If you're not familiar with it, it is based on the TV show of the same name. Man from U.N.C.L.E. is a spy thriller where 2 spies, one from the CIA, the other from the KGB, team up to stop a crime organization hell-bent on multiplying nuclear weapons.
Was that you, or was that IMDb?
That was me, man.
Nice.
No, if I see the movie and then prep for the episode, then I write my own. But like Fantastic Four, I knew we were going to see it and then go straight into recording, so I wasn't going to have time. So I just wrote whatever IMDb said, which was very vague and really didn't even describe the movie that we just watched, because what we just watched was barely a movie.
Yeah.
But anyways, we like to start off each review by just kind of giving a general overview of what we thought. So broad strokes, Tyler.
I thought this was a fun movie.
Okay.
I really liked the 60s feel of it, and how it was really stylish in a way. The action was really stylish, which I appreciated. And I mean, it kind of loses me in the third act a little bit. It was by no means a perfect movie, but I had a lot of fun with it.
Okay.
Broad strokes.
Okay. So after watching this movie, I knew this already going in. It's a Guy Richie movie, and man, he can shoot a fucking movie.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. He's not quite as stylized as maybe like a Wes Anderson, but you can tell that you're watching. Maybe you don't know who Guy Richie is if you're not a huge movie buff, but you know you're watching a movie that whoever's directing this knows what the fuck he's doing.
Yeah.
Like the way he moves the camera and everything, you can tell that you're watching a pro make a movie.
For sure.
Like you said, that you had a lot of fun watching it. It was really stylized. And that's one thing that I appreciate about Guy Ritchie movies is they're beautiful to watch. unfortunately, that style was wasted on a really bland story. I mean, obviously, that's partly his fault too, because I believe he has a writing credit on this movie, so you can't completely say, "Oh, well, he directed a turd." Well, he was the one that wrote that turd. So, and I wouldn't necessarily say that this movie, the story was a turd or anything. I
think you just did.
I kind of did, but no, I mean, he wrote it, so I mean, he's partially to blame.
Yeah.
I also think, and I know this is going to be unfair, but I also think that it's going to hurt this movie being released so so closely to Mission Impossible.
Oh, for sure.
Because they're both obviously based on 60s TV shows.
Yeah.
And they're both obviously spy movies. And Mission Impossible is a much better movie. And it's unfair because Mission Impossible obviously is this established franchise that has had movies to figure out what it is. And this is the first movie of this particular franchise. And so I think it's a little unfair, but I just didn't have as much fun watching Man from U.N.C.L.E. than I did watching Mission Impossible. I just felt like there was action scenes in this movie that they hadn't seen the finished product for Mission Impossible, but it seemed like they were trying to go the same route where every 15, 20 minutes there was an action scene. But in Mission Impossible, those action scenes were really fun to watch. In this one, it was just like, I felt the filmmakers thought that we were going to really enjoy them, and I was just kind of
yeah,
it's all right.
I mean, the action in this movie doesn't even come close to what you see in Mission Impossible.
I mean, it's beautiful because it's a Guy Richie movie, but at the same time, I just didn't get as excited as Rogue Nation.
Yeah.
Which, again, is kind of an unfair comparison, but it's a comparison that I think a lot of people are going to make just because these movies are so similar and they came out about the same time.
This year has been crazy for spy movies.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, you have Spectre, Mission Impossible, and Kingsman.
Yep.
So there's a lot going on in 2015 in spies.
All right, so let's just kind of dive into more particulars. What'd you think about the story?
I mean, you kind of touched on it. It wasn't anything amazing. I thought it was serviceable for starting it seems like they want to be a franchise. It was pretty simple, which, I mean, is whatever. I would have liked something with a bit more gumption, I guess.
Yeah.
I almost said girth, but then I knew that could be taken the wrong way.
Oh, I was going to make a dick joke.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I don't know. There's not so much that I can say about it because it was just so simple.
Yeah, I wouldn't
go here, do this, stop this.
I wouldn't say that it was necessarily simple. It just seemed really convenient. Everything kind of just the puzzle pieces went
for sure.
Together so easily, and there was very few speed bumps in this movie, and it's a spy movie. You're supposed to the fun of spy movies is you put these people in situations and they have to use their charisma and their skills to get out of it because nothing is going to ever go as planned. And I felt like in this movie, a lot of things went as planned, and the few twists and turns in this movie just seemed really just convenient and easy.
There was one big speed bump in this movie, and then it was very quickly expelled.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And obviously we're not gonna spoil this movie because I don't know about Tyler, but I would say go see this movie. It's not a horrible movie, but that particular scene, it was the big twist in the movie, but the stakes were so fucking low.
Exactly. Yeah.
One of the stars, and I won't give away who it is, gets away ridiculously easy. Just get chased by dogs and jumps over a fence and it's over, which I thought was ridiculous.
Oh shit, he or she is over the fence. Oh well.
Yeah.
Can't get him or her.
And then the other one was just whatevs. He just seemed to be, I mean, obviously later in the movie, he's put in a pretty intense situation.
Yeah.
But you knew that the other particular character had gotten away. I've seen enough movies and spy movies in general to know that the other character was coming back.
Yeah.
And he was going to save him. And it just, the few twists and turns in this movie, the stakes were just so low that I just didn't feel like the characters were ever in real danger.
No, I think you pegged it exactly how it is. Like, the story is fine. It's serviceable. This movie is more about introducing the characters, and everything about it is low stakes.
Yeah.
Like, I love that. That's perfect.
And the pacing wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. The lows weren't too low, but then again, the highs weren't all that high. So, I mean, I guess you could say that that's a plus because it never feels like disjointed, but I never got really super excited about this movie either.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. Like, I never got too invested, I guess.
Yeah.
But I thought the pacing was fine, I guess, if that makes any sense. Probably not.
That being said, the ending was, I don't want to necessarily say rushed, but again, kind of going back to what I said about the story is it was convenient. It was like everything was just wrapped up in this really nice bow, and I just didn't.
Sorry.
I just didn't like that. Like the villain was just dispatched so easily, and that really bothered me. And the true ending of the movie was just setting up the franchise. I'm guessing they're hoping for multiple sequels for this particular movie.
The movie ends really abruptly.
Yeah.
I was almost shocked. Like, no way that's how this ends.
Yeah.
Like, or this particular story, this particular arc with this villain ends just like that.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. It was really abrupt to me.
Yeah. And then they set it up like 20 minutes before, and I was like, of course, they're making such a big deal out of this that I knew it was going to come back later in the movie. And then the way they do it, it was very disappointing.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you get a somewhat of a showdown between the villain and Henry Cavill's character, which let's just go ahead and go on to performances. Henry Cavill is not a good actor. He is really, really bad in this movie. I feel like he was just reading his cue cards.
I thought Henry Cavill was really good in this movie. I thought the acting was great. And I think we're going to disagree there. I thought Armie Hammer did an awesome Russian accent and played an awesome Russian spy.
Really?
Yeah, I loved it. And
I mean, it wasn't horrible, but I've had a lot of Russian people talk to me. Not in Russian, obviously. It wasn't great.
I mean, I'll be honest, I've never had a conversation with a Russian person. Yeah. So I don't.
Every day of my life.
That's awesome. That Barry.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I deal with a lot of truck drivers, and a lot of them are Russian.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Cool. But I thought.
Not particularly. They're assholes.
I thought Henry Cavill, I hate using this word, brought like a swagger to the character.
No, I completely disagree with you.
He was really suave. I liked it.
I feel like he just thinks acting is just tilting his head slightly. He tilts his head like a boss, but he had no charisma whatsoever in this movie. I think
my problem might be I have a little bit of a man crush on him because
he's a beautiful, beautiful man.
Yeah, like I didn't have that feel from when I was in Man of Steel though. But when I was watching this movie, I was like, God damn,
he's a good looking guy.
I want to be this dude.
Yeah. But no, he is not a good actor. You know who I thought would have been really good in this part? And I know it's probably not a very good suggestion just because I've only seen a few episodes of this show. The guy from, White Collar? Matt Balmer, I think is his name.
Yeah, I'm not familiar enough.
He basically plays almost the exact same character because in Henry Cavill's character in this movie, Napoleon Solo, which
Solo.
Is totally like the most basic like movie spy name you can think of.
We were talking about it earlier, and I said they changed the name from the show, but I was wrong. That's their name on the show as well. Cool. So that's what they had in the 60s.
Matt Balmer's character in, I think it's White Collar, he plays a former, I guess, thief that gets caught by, I think it's the FBI, and he has to help the FBI, which is essentially Henry Cavill's character in this movie. So, I mean, obviously that's an easy comparison or an easy suggestion for this movie. But the few episodes I've seen of that show, that particular actor just brings a lot more charisma to that character. And I just think he would have nailed it. And it also doesn't hurt that he looks a lot like Henry Cavill. So maybe that's why my mind went immediately to that particular person. But I think he would have just done a much better job in this character in this movie.
If the IMDb trivia is to be believed, Tom Cruise was originally going to play this character.
That would have been tough.
But then he chose to focus on Rogue Nation.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Yeah, I wouldn't have liked Tom Cruise in that role. I don't think.
No, because Ethan Hunt is a completely different character.
Oh, for sure.
He has very little. I don't want to say he has a little charisma because I mean there's certain situations where he has to get out of situations just by not just cracking skulls. He has to actually talk his way out of a few situations, but for the most part, he's no nonsense and just kind of uses his skills to get out of situations. So it's kind of a different character because Napoleon Solo, which is, God damn it, that's such a ridiculous name. He's much more of a charmer, which
sure.
which bothered me because I don't think the actor playing him had much charisma.
I think that the worst acting in this movie didn't come from him. Obviously, I think that he did good. I thought it came from Alicia Vikander, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right. But
Ava from Ex Machina.
She played Gabby, and I thought that she was awesome in Ex Machina because she played a robot.
Yeah.
But she was very robotic in this movie as well. And it's almost like, I don't know where she's from, but it almost seems like she doesn't know how to act in English.
Oh, yeah?
She seemed very stiff.
I actually I agree with you in a certain aspect, but I think it helped her character because her character is not supposed to be comfortable in these situations, and she didn't look comfortable in these situations. And maybe that's just her skill or her non-skill as an actor.
She's just not comfortable in front of the camera.
And I think it helped her character because I thought she was good in this movie.
I mean, I don't know.
Good. I'm grading on a curve because I didn't think some of her co-stars were all that great. But
I mean, a few episodes ago, I kind of shit on this Elizabeth Debicki, who plays the villain. Without having seen the movie, just based on trailers, we were talking about actresses or something, and somehow it came up, and I thought she did fine. Yeah,
I thought she was serviceable.
Yeah, I thought she played a decent villain.
Her character is really not developed all that well,
not at all.
And her husband is just. He's barely in it.
I didn't even realize that was her husband until like the third
act. I was like, who the hell is this guy? I thought he was just a race car driver. And then I realized, they did like really briefly talk about how she's kind of the head of the organization and then he's just kind of a face. And
yeah,
I had completely forgot because they had glossed over it really quickly.
Yeah.
And we'll just kind of move on from performances and just kind of talk about the action, which we've touched on a little bit briefly. The action scene where him driving away was so anticlimactic. It was ridiculous.
Which, at the beginning?
No, it was towards the end where he kidnaps Ava from Ex Machina.
Oh, yeah, that was a really boring scene.
Oh, my God.
It was chase scene I think I've ever seen in my life.
And I know... that again, it's unfair because they obviously hadn't seen Mission Impossible Rogue Nation yet, but it felt like they were trying to go for like the motorcycle scene in that movie.
Yeah.
And it was just so boring.
For sure.
It was just
agree.
10 minutes of watching him climb up a mountain in a doom buggy. Like it wasn't fun at all.
It wasn't high speed. I mean, they show the speed gauge at one point. It's like, oh my God, it's going 70.
Yeah.
But it's still, you're just watching a doom buggy climb up a mountain.
Yeah, it was really bad.
Yeah.
But it was beautifully done though. And that's the thing that kind of bugged me about this movie was I was bored by the story, but I was like amazed at how beautiful it looked. Like, I'm sorry if this spoils something, but the husband gets stabbed at one point towards the end and he's like falling down and it's raining and there's like a rainbow over what is his dead body. And I thought, man, that's a beautiful shot.
Yeah.
And then I thought, too bad I didn't give a fuck about this character because if I would have cared about this character, that scene would have been a lot more powerful.
Yeah, I agree.
And I kind of think that kind of solidifies what I feel about this movie is that it's beautiful, but yet I don't give a fuck about anything that was happening.
All right. I mean, I feel like I've said what I wanted to say about the action. It was very stylized, very beautiful, but nothing mind-blowing.
Yeah, pretty much. So, I mean, that's about all I have.
I think that is about all I have as well.
All right. So we like to give each movie that we review a star rating, which you can check out by clicking on the Nerd Review tab on our website, thenerdspodcast.com. So, Tyler, what star rating are you going to give Man from U.N.C.L.E?
I'm actually having a hard time with this movie in particular because there was a lot of stuff I liked, and then there was a lot of stuff that was dry. I think I'm going to go ahead and give it a 3.
Okay. I feel like I always, and I knew that this was going to happen when we started the podcast and started giving star ratings, is because it's like, well, I liked this movie. It was all right. I would suggest it to people that kind of like spy movies. I mean, it's not the greatest, obviously. We've pointed out a lot of its flaws. But I keep thinking, well, I gave Age of Ultron this, or I gave that, and I want to give it a 3 because there are certain aspects, and Guy Richie does know how to shoot a fucking movie. But I'm going to have to give it 2.5 just based on my past reviews of other movies.
Yeah.
I didn't like it as much as other movies that I didn't give 3s to. So,
see, I think that your mindset and my mindset around the star ratings are different. I think that if I give something less than a 3, then I'm not recommending it.
Okay.
Whereas I would recommend this movie, so I feel like I have to give it a 3. Maybe that's not the best way to think of it, but obviously,
no,
you're saying you would give it a 2.5, but you would recommend people see it.
Yeah, and it's a high 2.5, if that makes any sense. It would be closer. It's closer to a 3 than a 2.5. But since we can't give it quarter stars because Tyler's a son of a bitch,
if we're gonna do that, why not just make it out of 10 at this point?
I guess you're right. I don't know. My mindset is I like to. When I say something is a 4 or 4.5 or even the rare 5, which I think I've only given Dawn of the Planet of the Apes a 5, I want that to matter.
Absolutely.
And this movie
doesn't matter.
Really, it doesn't. I mean, I might watch it again if it's like late at night and it's on Netflix and I'm just looking for something that I can ignore. Maybe if I'm editing a future podcast and it's on Netflix, I might watch this movie again because I can ignore it. But it wasn't that great.
I mean, I'd be happy if this movie got a sequel. I would like.
Okay, yeah, I would watch I would go see a sequel of this movie in the theater.
I like these characters enough to where I would like to see further adventures with them. I don't think it will get a sequel. I don't think it will make enough money to warrant that. But I would watch it and I would look forward to it.
I went and saw this it was the latest showing, and it was at a movie theater that's kind of a weird movie theater in the city that we live in. It's kind of like the dumpier of the theaters, but they give away free popcorn. So I always go to that one, and it's real close to my house. I was literally the only one in the theater on the day the movie came out.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, it was the latest showing, and it's kind of the least busy of the 4 or 5 theaters in Evansville. But yeah, I was the only one in the theater, so that can't be a good sign.
I went to the theater on the other side of town to see it, and the theater was packed. But it turns out it was not packed for Man from U.N.C.L.E. It was packed for Straight Outta Compton.
Yep.
So I'm amazed that movie is going to make, like, they had sold out multiple showings that night.
Yeah, that movie's going to print money.
Which is so crazy to me. I guess maybe because I have no interest in that rap group and no interest in the movie about it, but I guess a lot of people do.
I'm interested in it. I'd like to see it eventually. I don't think I'm going to rush out and see it. It sounds like it's well made, and I like to kind of brand myself as a movie buff. And if the movie's good and people the reviews are coming out and saying that it's well made, and
so it's getting good reviews.
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
I like to think that no matter what, I will go see a movie and at least appreciate something about it if it's well done.
I'll probably watch it when it's on Netflix.
Okay. Cool. All right, so our last segment, we just like to cap off. This is a question I think a lot of nerds have is just, what's your favorite blank? And so we like to end the podcast with what our favorite whatever is, and we go back and forth. I believe it's my week to ask the question, and since we just reviewed Man from U.N.C.L.E, which was written and directed by Guy Richie, I thought it would be kind of cool. I am a big fan of Guy Richie, his films. I enjoy them thoroughly. Thought it would be fun to ask what your favorite Guy Richie movie is. And I will go first. I'm pretty sure that if we're not going to have the same answer, I think you're going to pretty much agree with what I have to say. And that is, my favorite Guy Richie movie is Snatch. Love this movie. It is great. I know a lot of people like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, which is good. But I liked Snatch because he took what he had learned from making Lock, Stock and kind of applied it, and it was a little bit more of a refined movie. Obviously, every time you do something, you get better at it. And I think it's a better movie. I love the cast of characters. I mean, he's kind of known for those British underground kind of crime movies, and his movies have a ton of characters in it. And I like these characters more than I like the characters in Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. And I mean, Brad Pitt's character, is it Mickey?
Yeah, Mickey.
He's just fantastic in this movie.
Oh, he's awesome.
And like I said, with Man from U.N.C.L.E, you can tell that you're watching a Guy Richie movie. He just knows how to move that camera, and it's just fantastic. The angles in Snatch are really well done. The way he moves the camera in Snatch is just fantastic. I love it.
I've been waiting to say this.
You've been smiling the whole time. Every time I say Snatch, just make your vagina joke. Come on, just do it.
I was just going to say I've been waiting a long time to say on this podcast that I love Snatch. No, that for the sake of conversation, we would normally try to pick something different from one another, but I feel so strongly that Snatch is also my favorite Guy Ritchie movie that I'm going to have to go with that.
Okay, cool.
I mean, all the stuff you said times a million. I love this movie so much. It really caught me off guard. There was a period in high school where my buddies were showing me movies I hadn't seen, and kind of helped kickstart me being a movie buff that I am today. And Snatch was one of those movies that I got to see with my friends in high school that just kind of left a lasting impression. Brad Pitt is amazing in it, and he makes the movie for me. I'm not the biggest Jason Statham fan, but he's also really great in it. And I don't know, it's just a really fun ride, and I love it to death.
Yeah, for sure.
Just, oh God, love Snatch so much. Guy Ritchie really knows how to work a camera in Snatch.
He really knows what he's doing with Snatch.
That's right, he does, I'm sure.
All right, we're done. That was the last one.
All right.
So, just for the sake of conversation, what would your second favorite Guy Ritchie movie be?
I don't know. I hate to admit it on the podcast, but I've never seen Lock, Stock. I've only seen bits and pieces of it. I've never seen it all the way through. I think I fell asleep when I tried to watch it once. So, I guess the first Sherlock Holmes movie.
Yeah, that would be my second. That would actually, I know that's horrible to say because everybody loves Lock, Stock, but my second would have to be Sherlock Holmes as well.
Yeah, I mean, Sherlock Holmes definitely isn't a bad movie at all.
No, I don't think it's bad. I know a lot of people that are diehard Guy Ritchie fans love Lock, Stock. Neither one of us picked that movie before our first or second favorite Guy Ritchie movie. So, have you ever seen, not Revolver, because that movie's weird, and I know you haven't seen Rock and Roller, yeah. I
saw it once, and I don't remember much about it. I remember not really liking it.
No, it's not that good. I didn't really like it at all.
Yeah, I have the same feeling.
All right, cool, man. So that's about it. As always, you can follow us on Twitter at The Nerds Podcast, like us on Facebook, check us out on Google+, check out our new YouTube page, The Nerds You're Looking For. Email us at the nerds you're looking for at gmail.com. Check us out on iTunes, rate, review us, all that good stuff on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, basically any good podcast directory, podcatcher. We're on it. Think that's about it.
I think so.
All right. For Patrick Coon,
Tyler Hunt,
we're the nerds you're looking for. Take it easy, guys.
See you guys.
All right, for Patrick Coon,
Tyler Hunt,
we are the nerds you're looking for. Check it. Fuck! What the hell was I even gonna say there? Check us out, I think is what I was going for. Why? I was so close.
We were at the finish line, man.
Oh, okay.